how important this is. So we are so glad to see so many collaborators and people who see the value of this work. So welcome to our webinar series put on by the Relationship Foundation. We're glad to have everyone. My name is Cicely. I'm the managing director. And also welcome to everyone. We have people from all over the world. Some of you might be 3 in the morning, so extra welcome to you. So we are the Relationship Foundation. We've been introducing a unique life skill called nonviolent communication, and also the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. This study has led to what is now known as the trauma-informed and trauma-responsive movement, especially in schools. And so we actually work with schools, we work with organizations, and even just individuals who are hoping to improve and build stronger and safer communities. And in this unprecedented time of total uncertainty, all of our work right now is remote, but we're hoping to get back into New York City schools and schools anywhere. And actually in June we began in June we actually started presenting our work remotely, and to date we've given workshops for about 450 school principals, senior and support staff, and of course the teachers. However, we do offer our program to anyone, anywhere, and thanks to Zoom and modern technology, it's easier and easier all the time. On the next slide, you'll actually see a little bit about what we offer, our program, and then we'll go into more detail about that at the end of the presentation for those who might be interested. So a little bit about what we do. Someone was asking earlier about how often we do these webinars. The last Tuesday of every month, we usually introduce the basics of nonviolent communication in a webinar. And the second Tuesday of every month, we cover the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, and then how to use that knowledge really in any organization or aspect of life. And then we have ongoing special webinars that are just kind of scattered throughout the month on other related topics. Next Tuesday, the 5th, will actually be on the neuroscience of trauma, which in a way is really part 2 of this webinar on empathic listening. And then on Friday, January 8th, I'm actually going to be giving a presentation on nonviolent communication in the family. As a parent, this is the subject that I'm really excited to be speaking about. We also have 2 cohorts open for our certification training, one in February and one in March. We'll also tell you more about that at the end of the presentation. And then finally, we have our professional development workshops and curriculum for schools. What we offer is really a unique on concept curriculum schools have to implement. And ours is based on nonviolent communication principles combined with an understanding of trauma in a way that fosters greater perspective and compassion for students who are struggling in the classroom. And then these workshops and guidebook are also available for group facilitators, organizations, and really companies of any kind. And we do offer these workshops on a sliding fee scale, all depending on circumstances and size of organization. If you're a nonprofit, we even have workshops available in Spanish. So we'll tell you also more about that at the end. And also because we're meeting so many interesting people with such a variety of background, we've actually started up a private Facebook group for anyone who's joined our webinars or has used our curriculum. So you should be able to see it there on the screen. That's the name of our group. So anyone here is welcome to come on and join that. It'll be a great way to network with other people who might be in your same line of work or just general personal interest. And we will be moderating that group carefully to avoid, any spamming or anything. So please join us. NVC and ACE's Education Network is what we call it. And then also we're on social media, so make sure you follow us there. We also have our book, which is currently available for free right now on our website. So if you don't have that yet, please come on and grab it. And then also we are going to put I'm going to pop our survey just for, our feedback in the chat now, just in case anyone has to leave early. So please feel free to give us any feedback. We always like to know how people are enjoying. So, all right. Okay, so I think that pretty much is it. We'll look forward to chatting with everybody afterwards. And we'll introduce Michael Jazz, our executive director. He's going to wrap up the rest of the presentation for us.
Great, thank you, Cicely. Thanks everybody for coming today. We have almost 200 people have joined, and just to start with, we've done a lot of work in schools, and one of the teachers that we've worked with sent a question out to her students and asked what most impacted you this semester. And the student responded saying, and I'm going to read this, she wrote, learning about relationships and having, do we have the screen? There's, Cicely, is the, I'm seeing all the people who are on, but I'm not seeing, is the slideshow on? It's on, I guess it is, okay. Learning about relationships and having the speaker from the Relationship Foundation join the Zoom call and hearing, okay, my screen just went off. There we go. I'm going to start over. Learning about relationships and having the speaker from the Relationship Foundation join the Zoom call and hearing a new perspective on this topic was mind-blowing. Just to hear in perfect words what you were going through and an explanation behind it, it caused so much realization within myself and my relationships changed. So this is some of the feedback we're getting from kids in schools, and it's part of what really inspires us to work to get our program out more widespread. And the work can show you how to generate this kind of enthusiasm from students if you're with a school, and also with adults in your community. And with our curriculum for schools and guidebook for organizations and our workshops, we've gotten tremendous feedback. And to give you an example, one New York City teacher described our work as CPR for the soul. Now, the main objective for this workshop is to reveal, in simple terms, how our brains operate and how this understanding can foster more empathy and understanding for ourselves and others. So we'll go into the neuroscience further next Tuesday when we will present the neuroscience of trauma. We hope you will join us there too and learn how this understanding can help create some real healing. At the Relationship Foundation, we are conducting research in order to present useful information for schools and organizations. And the science doesn't have to be so difficult. Has anybody struggled in science in school? I did. I was a straight D student. Today, even for students like me, neuroscience has important implications for learning that can bring the light of day to those who struggle to focus in school and anywhere for that matter. Empathic listening. To give you an example of how quickly a shift can take place, I had an experience in a cab in the early 90s that lifted me out of a pervasive stress and tense situation. To give you an idea how rapid change can take place, I have a quick story. A few years back, I was working in film production in New York City, and I was in a cab going to see a producer about working on a film. For those of you who have been to New York City, you probably have a sense of where this is, because I remember it like it was yesterday. Going up a slight incline on 44th Street to 2nd Avenue, and if you're not familiar with that, you've probably seen it in a movie. It's right near the United Nations. As the cab stopped at a light, a man with a cup came to the window, kind of had like ruddy cheeks, and I'm guessing he might have been a street person and perhaps even been drinking. And the taxi driver clicked off a quarter, because back then they used the coin dispensers, clicked off a quarter, opened his window, put it into the cup, and gave it to the man on the street. And then he, in a real Brooklyn accent, he said, 7 down, 3 to go. The light changed, we moved up to the apartment house, and after I paid the driver, I said, I never saw a cab driver give money to a guy on the street. In a real thick New York accent, he said, 10 a day. That's what I do for New York, 10 a day. And I said, well, suppose he gets a drink with it. He says, suppose he gets a cup of coffee, and he gets a cup of soup, and he gets married, and he moves to Long Island, he has 3 kids, and he has a great job. I don't interview him. 10 a day. That's what I do for New York. Well, when I came to New York, there were a lot of people homeless and on the street, and there still are. And I would give a quarter to lots of people. But sometimes if I saw someone, if they had, let's say, a new pair of sneakers, I think, oh, they don't need a quarter, they got a new pair of sneakers. But how could I know their situation? Maybe they got the sneakers out of the trash. And from that point on, something changed quickly in my thinking process. I had a new mantra, 10 a day. If I saw somebody with a cup or a sign, I was already in my pocket, and I never give 10 a day. Because, and especially today, because I ride my bike around New York City, and I can't really stop for everybody who's got their cup out. So the reason I'm saying this is because we're going to do an empathy exercise tonight. And I think you may see that you can have a change of attitude and a change of a perception on what empathy may be in your life. And that's why I wanted to share this story, because it was an immediate shift, and 10 a day became my mantra. And empathic listening has become a mantra as well. Okay, so we're going to present some background on the brain and the body to give you some insight into behaviors and how they affect our relationships as well as our physiology. We're going to present brain architecture and the nervous system, which we will explore even further next week. So to begin with, we're going to start with the autonomic nervous system. Here, you see the brainstem on the left. It's in purple. It's the gateway to our spinal cord, and it connects the brain to the rest of the body. The diagram on the right illustrates how the autonomic nervous system works throughout the body. Autonomic means involuntary and unconscious. The autonomic nervous system is comprised of our brainstem and our spinal cord, and together they regulate things like heart rate, breathing, digestion, vision. This does not involve thinking. It's automatic, and it's kind of like autopilot. Here you see the roadmap of the brain, the spine, the rest of the body, and this is the human being's operating system. Again, you see the lungs, the stomach, and the heart. The autonomic nervous system is sending messages from the brain to the rest of the body in order to carry out all the functions. We are not in control of it. It happens no matter if we're awake or asleep. In other words, if you go to sleep during this event, you'll keep breathing. In a moment, you'll see how the autonomic nervous system connects to empathy and empathic listening in particular. So before we go to that, does everybody have full screen? Can everybody see the diagram? That's full screen now? Okay, great.
Not yet, just give me 1 second.
Pardon me?
I can't see
We're not seeing people's individual screens, are we? We're just seeing, I'm seeing individual screens, and I want to check to see that the diagrams are full screen, are they?
Yes. They come up with full screen, yeah.
Yes, I can see it too.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, it's full screen, and we're not seeing everybody's camera.
No.
Okay. Great. Okay. The next area of the brain is the limbic system. This communicates emotional responses to the brainstem and the spinal cord. The hippocampus and amygdala are part of the limbic system. If these terms are new to you, they were new to me until very recently, until we started studying neuroscience. You see in the diagram, the limbic system is responsible for memory and activation of feelings. The autonomic nervous system, the brainstem, and the spine respond to feelings coming from the limbic system to the rest of the body. Are you getting the picture? It starts in the brain and it goes to the body. Suppose you're sitting in front of a screen with 600 people you can't even see and wondering if you'll remember your speaking points. And will they like what they hear? Hint, hint, hint. Two areas of the limbic system we see on the diagram are the hippocampus and the amygdala. With chronic repeated stress, the hippocampus, responsible for long and short-term memory shrinks and becomes less effective. We'll discuss this further next week when we address mitigating trauma. The amygdala is known for fight, flight, or freeze response. When there is stress and there is fear, adrenaline and cortisol, the hormones of stress, are released into the blood system and into the brain. They trigger the fight, flight, or freeze response. Scientists have noted that the response humans have to daily stress is similar to the stress response we had when we were running away from a saber-toothed tiger. Except our daily stress is not life-threatening. So these stress hormones that many of us feel and experience it affecting our mood are the same stress hormones that prehistoric people experienced when they were struggling for survival, so that they wouldn't be lunch for a saber-toothed tiger. Again, we'll discuss this more next Tuesday when we address mitigating trauma. Now, hormones. What are they? They are the chemicals in the body that respond to environmental factors. Hormones attach to receptors on our cells that affect our mood and bodily functions depending on environment. Different parts of the body produce different hormones. The adrenal glands, they produce adrenaline, which is a stress hormone. Under stress, the hormones of cortisol and adrenaline permeate the blood system. If you have a big test coming up, or you have to give a public presentation, or go to a job interview, cortisol and adrenaline are likely to increase. In a calm, balanced environment, hormones such as dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin are released into the blood system and have a positive effect on our mood. These chemicals are released in a safe and trusting environment. These are the hormones of pleasure that affect our mood. And when we have this experience with empathic listening, I think that we'll all have a sense of what these hormones that are connected to ease and harmony and well-being, and how they can affect our systems bodily. So now we're going to shift over to neurons. Neurons are cells that make up parts of the brain. They make up about 80% of the brain. And there's 86 billion neurons in our brain. So by the time this workshop is over, I hope you'll have 87 billion. No, okay. All right, we'll make this short and then we'll get on with empathy. Here you see neurons. Neurons are brain cells that transmit electrical signals to each other. Neurons are constantly firing and wiring. So if you have an insight from empathic listening tonight and the exercise we're about to do, your neurons will fire in new patterns just like mine did when I learned that 10-a-day street mantra. There was an immediate change. We can't guarantee it, but many of the people, especially teachers that we've worked with, have seen how this not only affects the way they think and speak and relate to their students, but how it affected them in their personal lives. Now, we're going to look at a synapse. A synapse is a gap between the two neurons. Here is where electrical signals can travel from one neuron to another. This is known as firing. As we exercise our brain by learning new things and practicing the skills we learn, we form synaptic connections. This is known as wiring. Next, we see the neurons firing and wiring together. This is what is going to happen in your brain, and it's going to be fun. So these are some of the basics of neuroscience. As I said, science for me was very difficult growing up, and I hope this gives you a little bit of an inside look to how our brains and bodies respond and learn. So let's see if the empathy and the empathic listening exercise can increase those hormones of well-being, and create new synaptic connections. The source of where empathic listening originates is based on the work of Dr. Marshall Rosenberg's book, Nonviolent Communication. So here you see the book. The basics of NVC, nonviolent communication, are a practice of expressing one's needs and feelings without blame and judgment and listening empathically. Needs and feelings and empathy are all interrelated. We highly recommend this book, and it's really been a huge guide for us in developing the work. And you can find this book, if you want to go straight to the publisher. It's called Puddle Dancer Press, as it sounds. And we prefer to work with independent contractors and vendors for everything we do, because we want to keep things simple and make sure that the people who have originated this work get the direct benefit. Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide, and we're going to look at needs. This is the NVC needs list, and you should have gotten this list in the email, but here it is in the chart as well. So let's take a few moments and think about needs. And actually, empathy is a need in this list. If you look on the left side, you'll see it under connection. Think about how you might sometimes need empathy when these needs that you see on the list aren't met. When these needs aren't met, how might you feel? Take a moment and think about the feelings. So let's stop here. What feelings come up for you when you think about some of those needs that aren't met, and when you need empathy? So, the needs: affection, acceptance, appreciation, care, belonging, competence, effectiveness, efficiency, and participation, progress, harmony, peace of mind. So when we need empathy, it's often because these needs are not met. In the next slide, we're going to look at the feelings. And there we go. We're on the unmet need feelings. Okay, so with empathy and empathic listening, we can begin to feel these feelings. These are feelings associated with met needs. We don't call them good feelings, because what's good to one person is not necessarily good to another person. So that's part of what we do when we present the work of nonviolent communication, is we look at getting out of the world of judgment, good, bad, should, shouldn't, right, wrong, shame, blame. Okay, take a look at these feelings for a moment. Get familiar with them, because we're about to experience different feelings when our needs are met. So empathy is very much in the conversation today, and very much in our culture. Now, the dictionary definition, here you see it on the slide, is the definition of empathy is to understand and share the feelings of another. How can you share someone's feelings if they don't tell you what they are feeling? You have the list of feelings. It's on our website, and it's on a link that's, I think, in the chat now. So you'll never be at a loss for words to describe what you're feeling. The needs and feelings list can be accessed anytime on our website, and this is something we study and we introduce to schools and organizations. So, do you know how I'm feeling? Could somebody take a guess? Maybe put something in the chat. How do you think I'm feeling in front of 200 plus people, with more coming on all the time? I've stuttered a few times, stumbled a few times. How do you think I feel? So we're doing a little practice now. We're practicing articulating and identifying feelings. Well, I'm in front of a crowd of people, and even though I can't see anyone, I'm nervous. I'm self-conscious, and I'm uncomfortable. But I'm also feeling motivated, inspired, and grateful to be sharing information that we believe in. So we can have multiple feelings at the same time. How can you know what I'm feeling? You can only really know if I tell you. So now we're going to introduce what we call empathic listening. And we're going to do an empathic listening exercise. So the next slide has the empathy definition on it. We just talked about the definition of empathy. now we're going to talk about empathy blockers. What are they? So here you can see a list of some of them. One-upping, advising, fixing, educating, analyzing, consoling, discounting, storytelling, judging. These are what we call empathy blockers. So Cicely and I are going to do an empathic listening demonstration, and we're going to show you what empathic listening looks like. Okay, viewer discretion is now recommended here because what you're about to see may be alarming. Okay, Cicely, how you doing?
I'm okay. A little irritated today. I'm always asking my husband to help me with things around the house, and he just never does. I'm just getting tired of it.
Oh, yeah. My roommate's the same way. What did I do? One-upping. Cicely, I'd like to give you some unrequested advice. There's a really good book, I'm going to educate you while I'm fixing you as well. Really good book you can get on how to have better relationships. There's a book called Healthy Relationships 101. You should get that. The relationship, that was it. Okay, that's a plug. Consoling. Cicely, you need to relax. The day's over and you need to take it easy. Cicely, discounting. At least you have a husband. So this is something we do on a regular basis, and we think we're being social. We think we're making conversation. One-upping. Let me tell you about me. We think we're relating to you because we're now telling you about ourselves, but we block empathy. So we're going to demonstrate now, again, what we call empathic listening, which is amazingly simple. Okay. Hi, Cicely. How's it going?
Yeah, it's okay. I'm a little frustrated with my husband right now. I'm always asking him to help me around the house, and he just never does it. I'm just tired of it.
Wow. I hear you.
Thanks.
Tell me more.
Well,
Well, so what empathic listening is very simple. You get into an elevator, somebody's complaining about the weather, about their sports team, about anything. And what you can say is, I hear you. And you don't have to join in on all of the complaining and sharing what's wrong. Just like two molecules come together and they share information. Two humans come together and they share information. But what happens to your neurons when you're firing and wiring complaint and what's wrong in the world? So there it is. There's the neuroscience of empathic listening. Simply being able to say, I hear you. Tell me more. Okay. Now, we're going to break into groups of 3 to 4 people for just 5 minutes. Each of you should take a turn and express a frustration, not something tragic, ideally something that annoyed or disappointed you, and then the other 2 people or 3 people in your room will use 1 or 2 of these empathy blockers. And then you'll experience what it is to have the empathy blocking, and then you'll stop, say it again, and the other 2 or 3 people will say, wow, yikes, I hear you, tell me more. You'll have the empathy, list with you. So we'll also give you a 60-second warning when the time's up, and away we go.
all right, here we go.